I think the opening sequence of a scary movie should have something to like grab your interest. Definitely something scary, something horrendous. Shock value, obviously. I think the more shocking it is to begin with, the more kind of you're captivated by it.
I would expect it to hook you and want to watch the rest of the film. Like, you wouldn't want it to be quite silent, you'd want it to be explosive and out there.
I like a bit of normality. I like to be taken by surprise. So I like a kind of normal setting that becomes more horrific.
I expect it to let us know, give us the basis of what the film's about, but I expect to be almost frightened right away at that point.
What do I expect from the opening of a horror film? Usually, some sort of sinister music would be the first thing that I would expect, and I probably associate like a lot of open space, bad weather.
So the opening sequence, I would expect suspense, some music, a scene setter to really give you a bit of a taster as to what's going to happen next.
A lot of blood, a lot of jumpy scenes, and just scary, really.
For a horror film to have an impact for myself, because I've seen a lot of films over the years, it needs to now do something new. I think new with the genre. It's seen all the classic horror films, and so I'm interested in the ways people change them, whether it's found footage ones or other ones. Obviously, they became popular. So it needs to do something really to up the ante to really make you scared, I think.
Just to make me jump and actually make me scared to walk in the dark.
Is probably to be like really jumpy and have a really good storyline.
Have the standards of the actual trailer of the film, because they need to live up to the trailer, or else they're not going to be good.
That it has a good storyline and the characters are interesting and it actually scares you.
That they're going to be tense, I'm going to be kind of nervous, and that there's going to be the odd kind of jump and shock.
My favorite horror villain? I don't know. You know what? I love Jack Torrance. Is it Torrance, I think? In The Shining. He's amazing. He's psychotic. He's loony. He's scary. He's everything you want a villain to be.
My favourite horror villain would probably be Saw, mainly because of how the way he kills people in a justice system rather than just for fun. I think it's very clever and engaging.
It's hard to say who my favourite horror villain is, but it's possibly the Psycho out of Psycho, or Jason out of Friday the 13th, or perhaps Chucky the doll out of Chucky.
Zombies. My favourite villains of all time would have to be demons. I love demons in any horror film.
I think a lot of the times a scary villain for me, it would be one that you don't necessarily see too much of. They're the very best ones I find. So the ones where they're talked about and you see like hints and glimpses of them. It might be you see the occasional shadow or the frame of them. So when it builds up and when their sort of reputation builds up, if you see all of them at once, that's or you see the villain too much, they lose their impact.
Horror villain, I quite like Christopher Lee and what he's done over the years in terms of characters he's portrayed.
Probably the guy from Saw.
I think Frankenstein. I've seen a few different versions of it, and that whole idea about sort of putting together this body from these parts is quite a creepy, scary one. So I think like Frankenstein. He's not quite as trendy as Dracula and obviously all these vampire films.
My favourite horror character would probably be the Smiler out of Smiley, because it creeps me out, because yeah, just not nice.
Freddy Krueger, because his sort of like nail-ish type things give him a certain aspects because he's different from the rest.
My favourite horror character is Damien from The Omen, because there's nothing scarier than a creepy little child.
I don't know, more psychological, less gore. I'm not a fan of like Saw because it's just gross. There's nothing scary about it. I like movies to scare me, to make me jump. I like to go to bed at night thinking of that and being terrified. That is, yeah, and I think more spooky, maybe not as much on show. I feel like the less is more with scary movies.
I suppose most of them could have better ideas, because most things have been done by now, haven't they?
I think that modern day horror films are often a little bit, lots of blood everywhere, a little bit unsubtle. So I like a kind of thriller style horror where you don't know where it's going to go and it takes you by surprise rather than just knives and guns everywhere.
Maybe more tense and scary.
Do not elaborate too much on the thing that's happened. If there's like a murder scene or something like that, and don't show the whole thing, just show a part of it and allow your mind to do the rest.
I think horror movies can be improved by possibly going for less of the shock factor all of the time. I think sometimes some of the older films were better, whereas I think lots of times now with modern horror films, there's an overemphasis on gore and, you know, just almost gratuitous violence, where it's almost what can you do to the victims, maim them, kill them, rape them, blah blah blah, and because that's overdone, it ends up losing its impact again. So I think if you reduce the shock factor, and go back to sort of traditional horror films where you build up the suspense, I would prefer it like that.
I think they can be improved by, I guess, more gore as well as more suspense.
Usually just different websites that I can find. Sometimes Sky Go, Netflix, things like that.
I'm a bit old-fashioned. I like DVDs, I watch Sky movies, that kind of thing. I don't have any kind of Netflix or anything like that, so...
Netflix.
And through the internet, mostly.
Netflix and Sky, mostly.
I access my films more on websites and apps on my phone.
I usually access my films through Netflix because there's quite a few on there.
I would access my films either through the internet or on Netflix or Virgin.
I access my horror films through either on telly or on the internet.
I rip them illegally off the internet.
I would probably say a car park, maybe a school, something that I could relate to with my life, because then I feel connected to the film.
My favourite horror location would probably be either something quite normal like a house or a flat, so that I can have the surprise element, or I did like the wood setting in quite a few films. I'm trying to think of the name of the film where it was American students the Blair Witch Project. There you go, that's the one. I love that film. I think that's really great.
Woods, forest.
It would be, I'd say, the graveyard.
Probably like one of the paranormal activity houses.
I don't know if it's a specific one, but I guess as soon as you said location, I immediately thought of, you know, the scary castle with the rain, clouds, and the storm. So it's a bit of a cliche, but you know, the idea of the castle at midnight with the thunder and lightning.
My favourite horror location is more in a house because that's where more paranormal stuff happens.
My favourite horror location would probably be in like somewhere that's like reality, like a house or something, because it seems more real and like it's a better storyline.
I'd say like a cabin, because they're like small clustered spaces, so you can feel like the horror out of it.
My favourite horror location would probably be like a graveyard or a haunted mansion or something.
My favourite horror location is the big scary empty house.
Usually my friends.
Sometimes with family. But a lot of my family don't like watching horror films, so sometimes I'm on my own, which makes them even more scary.
I watch horror films with a boyfriend because then I feel safer.
I watch horror films with my friends more than anything, because like you have someone close to you that you can like cuddle up with when you get scared or whatever.
Either my mum, myself, or my friends, because it's just, yeah.
Usually my boyfriend.